So super excited to be here with all of you guys again. Cynthia Sherman, I know you're out there as well. And you and I both ended up being, trip leaders on this trip. This is your trip from before. But Tracey Seward here, excited to be here and reunited with folks as I stepped in for Cynthia, who was quite ill, but is not ill now and is with us today as we talk about, the most recent trip in Iceland, the Laugavegur Trail, which was an incredible trail. And we're still talking about the experience that we had in our WhatsApp chat and are really, really excited to share our experience with you. And so thank you, ladies, for being here with me today. My name is Tracey Seward, and I am a trip leader for Green Adventures. And I'm doing quite a few things for Green Adventures as we grow the business, and I work closely with Tara Short. I'm also stepping out of corporate America, 30 years in corporate America. I laugh about this, and Cynthia Sherman and I've had this conversation. I'm trading the 4-inch heels for hiking boots, and it is the best choice and the most exciting choice that I've made in my professional career. I'm also, I think, as I mentioned, an executive coach and doing some consulting on my side, but this is by far a trip leader and traveling with women that you're going to hear from here today. The best job I've ever had in my life. So super excited to be here. So we are only, I think, a couple of weeks of coming back from the Laugavegur trek in Iceland. And what we learned right after we got back, the weather was interesting, and you'll hear about that. And it's always a bit unpredictable in Iceland, and maybe that'll be part of the stories that we share today as well. But the trail did get closed the week after we were there just because of the weather and the wind and the rain. So for those of you that were on the hike that didn't even know that that happened, that'll give you a little bit of an understanding of what we went through the week before. Was a pretty challenging week, albeit it was incredibly exciting and rewarding. And some of those stories will come out today. So what I'd love to start with, for those of you that are with me today, we're starting to talk about, not only the reunion and coming back together as a group here after the trek, but for those that are listening to this, and maybe even some of our fellow participants that couldn't be here today, are going to live a bit vicariously through us if they didn't go on the trek. But if people are starting to think about booking this trek next year, this is a great way for them to hear from us, to be, we're going to be vulnerable, transparent, just as we're having a conversation around, let's say, the geothermal clothes drying in one of our huts, maybe. But I just, I want you to share your experiences just as if we're sitting around the fire. So let's get started. One of my favorite questions to ask, and whoever wants to jump in here first, and maybe I'll start with an answer to this question for myself. What inspires you to book this tour? And for me, funny, like, again, as your trip leader on this tour, I remember just watching and talking to Cynthia like the last 6 months or so, and watching your chat a little bit as you got ready for this. And I thought, oh wow, this is going to be so cool, and I'm so excited for all of you, as I've done this trek myself before. But I wasn't intended to lead this trip. And Cynthia, I know you were absolutely heartbroken to basically say, hey, what's plan B? I'm really, really not well right now. But I got to tell you, I was super excited. I was super, super excited to lead this trip. And as I sit here today, I was so excited to actually bring the group back together. It is an incredible tour. So I've participated in it, and now I've also led it. So let's turn it back over to those that were on the trip that booked it. Hey there. What inspired you to book this tour? Angel, do you want to jump in first?
Oh shoot, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I'm dropping my daughter off at soccer practice and thought I was muted. I
No, you're
apologize.
okay. You're
Okay, let
okay.
me
No
turn my
one's gonna
video
know
on.
that. Do you want to
Oh
wait
my,
and come back?
yeah, maybe. Give me
Okay,
just a minute. I just parked and got her
you
onto the
got
field.
it. You got
I'm
it.
so sorry.
You got it. You got it. Elizabeth, how about you? Are you going to say it was
Sure.
Joanna?
No, well, what inspired me to book the tour, honestly, was I've done quite a few hikes, and I always like an organized tour. Haven't done a hike since having kiddos. And actually corporate world was not going so great. And so this just came at a time that I'm like, I know I'm going to need something to look forward to. And it all just aligned well. So I thought it was cool that it was women's only. It's not something I had done before, but I really enjoyed it, and it made it easy as well.
Elizabeth, I appreciate that for others out there, because I had the privilege of hearing the stories of what you've done before. You've done a lot. You've done a lot of different hikes. Like, throw out a couple of highlights.
Um, Done Mount Whitney, Machu Picchu, Laris Trek in Patagonia, and Mount Rinjani in Indonesia. So
Yeah,
this was
you are not you are not new to hiking. So we may come back to that, but you've got a very impressive hiking record. Yeah, thank you. Cecilia, how about you?
So I will say, I'm Joanna, talking no, but really, I did it because Iceland's been on my list for a long time, and I thought this is a really great opportunity to see Iceland in a different way than a casual visitor might see. I wanted to do something a little bit different, push myself a little bit out of my comfort zone. Also, I loved that it was just a tour. I always say, like, I like traveling. I hate planning a trip. And the idea that, like, all I had to do was show up with the list that was given to me, and I knew I was going to go on an adventure. And that feels like, to me, like, I feel like I'm making decisions all day, every day. And the idea of getting off the grid, not being connected to the internet, my phone, and like just having it all planned out for me and knowing it was going to be a surprise, but like amazing, was really wonderful. And that was really wonderful. Like that, it was great. I was telling someone that last night, like that it was really nice to have all of those details worked out for me too, in addition to seeing this wonderful place.
I really appreciate, again, I couldn't have asked you to say that even more perfectly, because a lot of people say that, Cecilia. I know that was important for me as well as a traveler, right? And you've got, everything lined up, the guides, the routes, the meals, the lodging, everything is lined up. And for those that are listening in, you've heard us joke a little bit about, did Joanna, is she the one that inspired you? And we don't have Joanna with us today. If she listens to this, hello, Joanna. But Joanna is a center of many people that were connected in Michigan, but not necessarily did everybody. Joanna didn't twist anyone's arm. Everybody signed up for this trip, and signed up with, gosh, I would say both feet in the water. And we'll talk a little bit about the Iceland water here in a little bit, but raring to go. Angel, can you talk or not yet? I may come back to you if I see you on video, but I can come back to you. Okay. So let's keep going here too. So it was hard for me, again, with you on this trip, hard for me to even choose the photos that I pulled into this deck. Because there are so many. And Elizabeth, you're still contributing, and I love it. I can't wait to look at the photos that you just put into our photo circle. But the question I would ask all of you here, and I know, I feel like we had some of these conversations on the trail as well too. This was a tough one. It was very rewarding, but there were tough moments, and there were incredibly rewarding moments. And I heard this from several of you. So for me, there's this question of, and for others, if there was a defining moment for you, or even if it looks like and sounds like a top memory. And in some cases, like, for me, I just kept remembering, oh gosh, there's a river. No, there's many rivers that are coming in front of us, right? So I kind of laugh a little bit about that. But the defining moment, I mean, for all of us is different on these trips. And it may also be, what we're experiencing and what is happening in life. It may just be a fear or something that we thought we would never be able to accomplish. But I'm curious if there was one for each of you.
I can talk now. I figured out.
Angel, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm used to doing this on my computer, not in the car at soccer practice. So I'm learning how to do it on my phone. So I again apologize that you could hear me talking all this stuff with my daughter. So but this specific question, fear, oh my goodness, I had many. I've always been active and have done, I've climbed a 14er. I've done things that are pretty much done, or, even CrossFit competitions and, but they're done in a day or less. So the 5-day idea of being out where you are responsible for yourself. Now, when I say that, I know that Green Adventures and you, Tracy, and Thora, like, I felt very held, but going into it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I saw this list, which was wonderful, but I'm like, oh my Lord, what am I doing? I need all of it.
The packing list you're referring to, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was like, okay, here we go. So, that kind of brought up a little bit of, anxiety of like, just, I'm responsible for myself, legit. And okay, here we go. And the rain gear part of it, when I think somebody, or maybe it was even suggested on the rain or on the packing list, that you test out your gear. If you can't, do it in the shower. And oh my goodness, thank goodness, because I mean, that I still don't even want to wash it, because I'm like at home, like hugging my rain jacket and pants because they were like my savior.
Yeah.
Angela, if many people feel quite a bit of anxiety when they get that packing list, and so one of the great things about Green Adventures, right, is that we want to make sure that you're prepared.
Sure.
And front load it with everything that you have. But that was also why I was like, maybe I'll send them a video. Maybe, we'll show them what layers, show them what's in the pack. Hopefully, decreasing some of that anxiety of like, okay, yep, everything's on the list. Just like, she said, it's in the pack. All right, I'm good to go. So hopefully that was helpful. And I can completely get how you were hugging your rain gear, because I'm certain from the pictures that I saw that you guys definitely went through some weather.
Yeah, and the list was so helpful. I think it did a really good job at not overdoing it or underdoing it. Because of the weather that we had, there was not a ton that I didn't use. I like to stay warm. So I did use a lot of my, base, mid, outer, there was maybe a couple jackets that I didn't use out of just being okay with reusing things and not bringing stuff out. But it was I feel like a well thought out list. Like I said, not overdoing it or underdoing it. But yeah,
Thank
I think
you for sharing that. I want to say something about you. You said that you had the fears at the end. I think we came back to that when we all kind of did our last moments together. I would never have known that about you. And I think this is something interesting, and maybe, for me, this is maybe even like a subtle defining moment for you. You had this from the day that you started until the end, and you never saw I didn't, any fear whatsoever in you. So that inner strength clearly came out from day one to the end, for sure. So,
Thank
and
you.
the smile on your face the entire time. Frankly, everybody was smiling, Cynthia. As tough
I
as that thing,
agree.
it was. I think the other thing that you reminded me of is that the rain gear is important. I love that you mentioned the packing list. A lot of thought goes into that. But there were a couple of people that misplaced. I think we always found it, but the misplaced rain gear happened a couple times. And talk about like fear setting in 2 hot seconds, right? Because we knew how important that rain gear was to us. But there was also extras. People were like pulling out, I got an extra, I got it. So again, that was some of the teamwork that happened, but that creates some fear along the way as well. So Angel, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, how
I can
about
go
you?
next. I was gonna say I'll definitely second, and I didn't think of it, but on the trail, how gear makes such a big difference, because I have been on a lot of treks, and especially when you're on the ends of the earth, it's windy and rainy, and the weather changes quickly. But I was even though even though the weather was not the best, it wasn't sunny, and actually it had a different element, and I valued my gear and the tech that has now evolved. You're like, okay, I'm not wet. It may be raining outside, but I'm still okay. So I think that was definitely something a little bit different that I've experienced here on this trek, along with the landscape was different every day.
Yeah,
So
it
even
was.
just going back through the pictures, like the first day, I'm like, this is like Volcano National Park meets Badlands, and then every day it just kind of changed a little bit different, and I think that, and it I actually really enjoy doing a through hike versus I'm like, oh, I've always done summits. You go up and you go down, and I really like the through hike. So I think that might be my new flavor moving forward for hiking.
It's awesome. Yeah.
And the huts. The huts were basic. And that might be a question later, but I think that's a cool experience and it adds a whole other element to hiking.
Did you say hot springs?
No, the
Did you say
huts, like staying
the
in the
huts?
in the
We're
hut.
gonna come to the huts. That is definitely a conversation. Yeah, we'll come to the huts. Cecilia, I don't know if you are able to share anything.
Yeah, I would say I echo a lot of what's already been said. I would also say, I don't know, this was a little bit different. I tend to probably over research things. Like I know, like to collect all the information, and I think it's a control thing that I have. And I really didn't. I read the stuff. I had to miss some of the pre-meetings, which is probably bad, but it worked out for me, I think. And I think I would have researched more actually if I went to them. But I went in kind of blind in some ways, and I just went with a packing list. Usually I overthink packing and I was just like, I'm just trusting that I'm going to do what people tell me to do and it's going to all work out. And it was like a really, like, I kind of think about that, like one of the rainy days when it was pouring rain and I had my rain gear on and I was fine. And it was, amazing place where we were. And I was like, yeah, this is just it just works out. Like other people can
Yeah.
figure things out too. Like that was like something that kind of, I don't know, sticks with me from the trip.
Is it what I think I'm hearing is there's something about the trust.
Yeah.
And there's trusting for sure self in all of this, which I would say with many of us, but there's trusting in the process and
Yeah.
presence and
Yeah. And
yeah.
trusting kind of people who've done this before and like not trying to overthink it or reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. This group was I loved it. It was but and every single one of us were like, okay, so what's next and what time and how long and what do we think? And I mean, and by the way, that's me, right, as well too, because again, it's like you want to be able to predict, but what happened pretty quickly is that we couldn't predict. We couldn't say, oh, by the way, because you saw like Laura would say, we got to go this way now, or we've got to do this now, or we've got to. So then that flexibility in everybody, it just has to kick in. And it did. So you can't, on this trail, there's no way to say it's exactly going to look like this and we're going to take this route. And I saw different things on this one that I did the last time that I did it. So,
well, I think it's even interesting, like right from the get-go, we were not in rain gear, and then Thor was like, nope, you get rain gear on. And then even one of the days where she's like, I think it's gonna be sunny today. And then we were getting ready to head out, and she's like, nope, get the rain gear on. And I was like, okay, like we're all just figuring this out, but it's fine. We have the things we need. We're just, it's gonna be a surprise for everyone.
and she did, Cynthia, just to share, we were at one of the huts and she said, and I remember her telling me earlier, look at the sun, look outside. She's like, today I'm wearing my trail shoes. I'm just going to wear my running shoes and I'm not wearing my rain jacket. And it's that morning, right? And it was 20 minutes, right? She was like, absolutely. These are not the shoes I'm wearing today within 20 minutes. And this is definitely what my gear is going to look like. So we just have to be prepared. And we were.
Well, and it's so nice that Thora, I mean, she's got so much experience. She looks up and says, oh, everyone, put your rain gear on and put the pack covers on, and whatever Thora says, you just do.
You just do.
It's like, okay, she knows what she's talking about.
Just do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to your last question, if you wouldn't mind, Tracey, your last slide, distinct. The canyon, did you have your entire group do the canyon hike?
Yeah, we
I'm looking
did.
at the picture to the right.
Yeah.
I would say that is a moment, right? Because you're hiking to this spot and it's just, I mean, absolutely incredible. And so I'm glad that you guys were able to get there. And it looked like you had some decent weather when you guys had done
Well,
that.
that's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say. It was like a small break. Because even as we were getting close to this canyon, and I was hoping so badly that we'd have this break, because Thor was like, I don't know, Tracy, I don't know. And there was doubt. This was a teeny tiny little break right here that happened at this moment. And then it started to sprinkle as we were walking off, right?
Did you go
We
straight from,
just had a rain break right here at this canyon.
did you guys go to the hut and
Yeah,
then
after
out
this.
for this hike, or did you not stop at the hut and continue to
No,
take
no. We went to the canyon and then to the hut. But the question was whether or not we were going to be able to do it.
Oh, at all?
Yeah,
Oh,
at
I see.
all. Right.
Well, I'm glad you guys
Right.
had that
So I was very
opportunity.
grateful that everyone got to see this because this is so incredibly beautiful. There was a day, this reminds me of a day, and I remember, I wish Angela was here, but you remember probably this comment, but we were on one of the rivers, and this moment reminds me. But I remember telling her, Cynthia, you'll appreciate this. We're sitting down, raining, coming down that mountain to the river, freezing cold, take our stuff off, go into the river. And I sat down on the other side of the river, and I'm like, last time when I did this, we were having a picnic and it was sunny right here. She was like, you shut it. Shut it right now. So it all depends, and it's beautiful Iceland, and you just have to be ready for it. So
Absolutely.
It did rain. It rained the first few days, but it was nice that the last day,
the
it was
last
a
bit.
beautiful day. So,
And we had
and
an
that's kind of
incredible
Iceland, right?
yeah.
And
We
we were
had
saying too, like, beautiful weather would have been really nice, but there's something also kind of, I don't know, I think we should all be proud that we had some torrential rains for 2 days and we all hung with it. And like, no one was like, everyone had a really good positive attitude. And
Yeah.
like, it was even just like added to the challenge. So like, there's something kind of, I don't know, cool to be able
You
to
get
say
extra
we didn't
breaks.
just do it. We did it like with some real dicey weather.
Oh yeah,
might
I mean
be
it's that type 2 fun, right? It's you were able to
exactly.
hang together, you had the
Mhm.
camaraderie, you powered
Mhm.
through it, you
Yeah.
all did it together. I mean,
Yeah.
again, looking through these pictures, I was so incredibly proud of what you guys were enduring. And I would hear from Thora every now and then, or she'd be sharing pictures, and I'm like, oh goodness, how are they doing? Are they? She's like, they're great. I'm like, excellent.
Well,
It's
and
funny.
for Thora to say that we're doing great, I feel pretty badass.
You should, Angel.
I mean,
Absolutely.
because she did say that a couple times. She's like, there's
Yeah.
no complaining. There's,
Yeah.
like in her way. And I'm like,
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. I was just sitting here thinking, was I exaggerating? Because I feel like I keep saying that it rained for 3 days. Was it 2 days or 3 days?
That's
a long,
great.
Yeah,
That's the first.
Yeah.
hard. Right? I was like,
I
wait, yeah,
think
no.
I think we just all took pictures when it was not raining.
yeah.
So like we have the pictures and the little breaks.
It was
Because
hard.
it's hard to keep your camera out when it's pouring rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Cecilia, what I think what I was just like subtly or subconsciously I was thinking was we just put it away. In our minds, you just put it away, you just go. Right? We
Mhm.
would stop for lunch, and she would take us, further because it was raining. And it got to the point where we couldn't go further because we needed to eat, but it was still raining, right? And then it would be a little teeny break or whatever it was, but you just put it away and you just go. I've got the cabin pictures up here right now, only a couple. And the second one from the left really doesn't do it necessarily justice, but there's a couple that it's like, then you realize how wet we were, how much of our clothes, right, was hanging in these huts. And the beautiful part about, I still say these huts though, at times I was like, man, it's just too hot in these huts. But no matter what we felt like during that day, we did walk into really nice, cozy, warm huts, and every single hut was a different experience. And I did just put something out on Facebook because I thought people always ask, what's the hut life like? And so for me, like I'd love to get a perspective from a couple of you of hut life.
I thought it was fun. I've always done camping and I've never stayed in a hut. So I wasn't quite sure what to expect. But I think it was equally like just part of the overall experience. So, I mean, I camp, so I'm not, immune to being in small sleeping quarters. But it definitely added an element. And yeah, the only thing that I would say is when you lose your gear, because I think the first night I'm like, I don't know where my rain pants are. Did somebody take my rain pants? And it just happened to be somebody had moved it so it would dry, but somewhere I couldn't reach. Then I'm like, oh, make sure you label all your gear, just to make it easy because there's other people in the huts too, and it's not just our group. But I think that made it like I thought it was kind of cool because not only did we get to socialize and have a place to meet everybody within our group, but then also the other people on the trail as well, and just meeting people from all over the world. And I mean, that's part of doing these hikes.
And people are I mean, they're having their experience and not necessarily walking with us, but there is something as well about a bit of a shared experience when we came together with the people that weren't in our group that might have been sharing our space with us that I think is also quite special. By the way, I just remembered, I forgot, but I was one that took someone's pants. Now that I think about it, I forgot about that. I was thinking it was Angel, but it might have been Sarah or someone. When somebody said, oh my God, my pants are gone. Oh, let me go check my backpack. I accidentally took someone's pants, but it all works out. We figured it out.
From the hut experience, because I have never had experienced anything like that, I'll say the first hut, after the first hike, the first day is a long day with travel and hiking. So you get on the bus from Reykjavik, you do the long bus ride in, and then you're like, whoa, this bus is going through these rivers, and what I just signed myself up for. So then you get all your stuff on and you do a hike. So by the end of the day, I was like, okay, I'm ready to relax. And we walk in, and again, we're drenched, and so is everybody else who had already arrived at the hut. And so you walk in this little room, there's already all this rain gear hanging up, and I'm like, where do I put mine? And Joanna, actually, she was in there with me, and she was so great. She's like, we'll figure it out. I'm like, you're right. We'll figure it out. And we did. And it was all fine. But I don't know. I didn't really have an expectation, but I wasn't expecting this little thing with a bunch of hanging wet things and other people. And it ended up being great. And you know what? Each hut after that, I feel like was better and better. Not that one was bad, just it was shocking.
That's the toughest one of all, for sure.
Yes.
Angel.
And I was tired and wanted to get these clothes off, and but it's set. I would rather it be like that. I would rather the first one be the more challenging one, and then have it get, they're all different, and I appreciate each of them for their shelter and warmth and food by all means. But it was just from a beginner's perspective a little shocking, and then Elizabeth and I had to sleep literally head to head, and she learned very quickly that I'm a snorer.
That you snore. Yeah. So do others, though.
But that was just like Elizabeth said. I think for me, the hut part of it too, just the different personalities of each of them, even looking through my pictures, was so cool. And how they're operated, and the different amenities, and I that was really cool. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it is the hut experience, and I mean that you cannot do Laugavegur, right, unless you're either tenting or you're staying in one of the huts. So the shared experience that you're gonna have with, let's say, someone else who is hiking from Switzerland, is exactly the same. And yeah, that first one is a bit rustic, but I think it was Angel who had pointed it out that it does improve. Yeah. It does. Every hut does improve as you go from one to the next. Is that room, the second picture there, is that the dry room, like that little lobby area where everyone hangs all their things? That's not where you guys
the
slept,
second one is the sleeping quarters of one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys will let it all. You guys will let it all hang.
Yeah, that was 2 or 3.
Room.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bathrooms get better as it goes on
They
too.
sure do. And that last hut, oh, that's my favorite. That is my very favorite. Um, Angel, what you reminded me of as well too, and I don't want to underestimate the mental challenge of that day one, and then stepping into that hut, is another, it's just a piece of it. But that day, Cynthia, just to share with you, it was that day was tough. That day was, it's a tough hike anyway, that day. But that day rained, it rained. I think it rained the entire day, and it was foggy. And as we came up on the crest of the
Like they're
hill,
warriors. Sorry,
yeah,
I'm just like, wow.
yeah. And you remember, ladies, when Thora said the hut is down there, right?
Yes,
It
he
is
kept
down there,
saying,
and I think she said it's the first time, like I've never
yeah, she
seen the
kept
hut. She
saying,
could,
you can see the hut. You should be able to see the hut from
yeah,
here. You can see the hut from here normally. We should be able to see it soon. And she kept saying it.
yeah.
She's like, I know where it is, but we should see it.
You had rain. Did you have a wind blowing too? Like, did you have
Yeah,
black
sleet.
sand
I
in
mean,
your?
that was tough. So I don't want to underestimate like just where our mental state was. And everybody was still smiling and still like, oh, we got it. But it is the most rustic hut as well.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, that was for me, I think that might have been the hottest hut too. I remember like all I had on at the top bunk was very little because it was so very, very hot, but I was so grateful, right? Because it had been just such a rainy, cold day. So definitely warriors here, this entire team. So I'm watching our time. I want to make sure I get a couple of, we don't even need to go into this one, but I'll share for those that are listening as a recording here too. But a couple more things I wanted to get from you guys, and thank you for staying here with us. But I just the weather, right? And not to be all complaining about it because it is part of the experience. And at the ending, and you'll see a picture in here at the very ending, there is an incredible rainbow and beautiful, almost tropic like in our last hike, right? We'll show that in a minute. But and I think we've talked a little bit about it as we've talked about and asked the questions here too, but it's just like, is there anything else that you feel like and maybe it's just the stamina, the grit that's inside of us that we learned about ourselves. I mean, some of us, for me, my boots failed. My boots failed. And as I went into water, my feet are wet, right? And I'm like, of all people, my boots cannot be wet, right? But it was, and it was raining and cold and sleet. So what do you learn about yourself? You learn that you got this. You got this. So I don't know if there's anything else, anything new for folks. I think we're hearing the grit in you already, but we had it. We did it.
I'll echo you, Tracy, in that I feel like the challenges that, because you don't get any of those in everyday life, they just kind of reminded me of my strengths,
Yeah.
because you don't get to test that here, and there's all kinds of other things that test me, children, work,
Yeah.
but not like that. And it's kind of nice to come back to yourself in that regard, to just like when I came back home, I was like, oh, I've got all this. If I just did that,
You
I am
can't, there isn't
good.
anything that you can't do. That's
Yeah, we're
exactly
starting
right.
the school year. We're at soccer. We've got 2 boys going to college. Like,
Yeah.
yes, we like it. Just, yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
my biggest thing. It just kind of brought me back a little bit more to myself, which is
Yeah.
that's pretty cool because there's not a lot that can, truly do that.
Yeah.
Well, Angela, and I can assume, I mean, this is stripped to the basics, right?
Right.
And as you're walking, there's this, I'm certain there was a survival mode as you guys were walking, like, I need to just keep going. I need to keep going, but with that, there's a silence. And I don't know how often, I know I don't get it enough, but to be able to have that silence, you guys probably walked and hiked probably a good couple hours without much talking. And there's value in that too, right? Who knows, you guys probably all solve the world's problems in your heads as you continue to walk forward. But yeah, some inner strength and the back to the basics, so that when you come back, you definitely have an appreciation for everything that you have.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I think this question here, how did camaraderie enhance your experience? when I see this picture, well, first of all, one on the left is quite cute and quite fun, and I think that was our last hut as well. But people are still smiling. But with the very last hike into the cave was, and just an interesting kind of almost a capstone. The lagoon was clearly another capstone here too. But just in that cave, as we all sat together on our last hike with Laura right in the center, and just going through moments, and back to your point, Cynthia, of moments of silence. There was some moments of silence, but there was almost also a joint, just a locking of souls, I felt like, as we sat in this last cave. And, I just, yeah, I don't know if any other thoughts. I mean, funny stuff, happy stuff, but camaraderie on these trips are so critical and so important. I don't know if there's any other reflection for any of you or memories to share.
I stayed back for that one and took a mental health break.
But when we came back, we asked the question again that we asked in that thing. And I remember, right, that was very intentional so that you could experience that as well too. I still feel like we all talked about trolls, right? I definitely saw a troll in that cave.
Well, I mean, the bigger picture of like why I would do a hike with a tour company is for the camaraderie, because that is, somewhat built in. Like, yes, you can, when you're hiking, and as Cynthia said, you're on your own a lot for the most part. Like, you have good intentions and you're like, oh, listen to this music or a podcast or anything, but weather comes and you're like, I am just looking down and making sure I'm not tripping on anything, or I'm looking at the scenery. But I think that's, one of the biggest lights of having a tour is you do, and I really only knew Angel and I didn't know anyone else. Opportunity to meet new people, and all different types of backgrounds professionally, or then even Cecilia. Then I'm like, oh, we used to work at the same company together and didn't know. So it's just funny, all the different connection points on like a group of 16 ladies.
I think that's the other cool part, and I think we mentioned it like this again. There, the universe, brings, I believe this, right, people together and brings, and I think it, it brought the 16, together for sure. But, the irony was, Elizabeth, to your point, it was the moments of, oh yeah, and you, and and I just, but I appreciate you saying that, because it is part of why we do sign up, but it is also your own journey. So if you are one that, doesn't necessarily want to be, chatty and, living it up with everyone, there are those moments where you have your space, and it's your journey, and you enjoy what you need to enjoy. But what always happens on these is there's always a very tight integration, no matter what, and no matter how we start. And I definitely saw that here.
I have to add to that too. Like, one of my concerns going into this is that you were with these people the whole time, and I need, like, I think like an extroverted introvert, but like I need time away from people to like recharge.
Yeah.
And a little bit of a concern was that we were in this group activity for a bunch of days.
Yeah.
And I really do feel like just the nature of the hike and the trip, and our group was really great about this too, I think, but like you could just walk by yourself for a while and like in, silence with your thoughts, and then you could jump into someone's conversation, and then like, but it was very much like everyone did their own thing together, which you were very much in control of what your interactions were like every day.
The level of, and it happens really quickly, of understanding, trust, respect, space that's needed, it happens pretty quickly. And it did, I think, on this group as well too. So Cecilia, I appreciate that. I'm very much the same way. So there are times when you really want to be in, but there's also times when you just really need your space. And it is your journey. So I'm gonna maybe ask a couple more questions here before we close out. But I just and we don't have to get into this one. I still thought this was so interesting, the bridge. And Cynthia, I'm not sure if these bridges were in place when you were there last. Yeah, I think it's cool. These bridges that we walked over towards the end and towards the last hut, right, are movable, which I think is just, they weren't there the first time that I did this trek. And I think what's happening clearly is you're watching, right, the rivers either rise, you're watching them shift, but they want to be able to move these things as we, as obviously as Mother Nature does what Mother Nature does. And I just, I shared on a Greenland trip earlier today with the participants what I remember about Alaska, and I felt this in Iceland as well, is that both of these trips that, even visiting there in my lifetime, I'm able to see where a glacier was and how then the glacier is changing and shifting the next time that I'm there. And so to me, it's another one of these really interesting experiences that again makes me just completely appreciate the world in which we live in and what is happening also around us, but just to further respect to further respect our environment. And definitely we saw that here with glacial melt in Iceland. And I don't know, again, if there's any other lessons that maybe you saw or felt on this trip. The reuse
Well,
of
just because you have the picture of the bridge.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the picture of the bridge, like, it's like, oh, okay, it's to go over, but I didn't realize, why, like, how they, like, I guess it's something I've never seen before, that the way that the water runs, changes all the time. So this is how they cope with it. So I think just, that does not happen in Michigan living.
Yeah.
So.
And how our huts were heated, right? The geothermal, Mother Nature and the earth was heating our huts, which is also just hot huts. It was pretty cool.
I have a new appreciation for porridge.
Oh,
That was our breakfast the first morning. I was like, yeah, I think I'm good. Just gonna depend on my snacks and an apple. And I learned that day that I needed more nutrition. And so the next few or the remaining mornings, even some eggs got introduced, which was beautiful. But that porridge, really does sustain you. Like again, when you're at home, you aren't hiking for 5 to 7 hours at a time. So I underestimated a little bit the nutrition needed. So that porridge I just think the word itself gives it a bad stigma. I even came home and told my family and they were like, what? Porridge?
like the three little bears. What? Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. But there's
I
something
learned,
neat in that. Yeah, Angel, just
yeah.
that you're paying attention to yourself and your body and what you needed, and you were learning over the days of what worked and what didn't for you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was one of my concerns too, was nutrition, because I am a nibbler, not a big, but eat 3 meals a day kind of thing. So I was concerned. Even my husband's like, look, you need to eat.
Yeah.
But he's like, you're not going to have the chance, to just do what you do here. And I'm like, yeah. So I learned very quickly that I was
he
like,
was
all right,
right.
yes, get the
Yeah.
food while you can, get some, calories while you can. And then you also need your snacks that you bring and your lunch. And so, the nutrition part of it was a good learning experience for me too.
Yeah. There's something in here I might translate to the last question I'm going to ask you. I know that we're at time right now, and I want to be respectful of your time, but there's probably a lesson in here as well too. And there would be for sure a lesson for me in the food and the nutrition. This is a piece that those of you listening as well too, the snacks are so incredibly important, and that's on our packing list for sure. But I became a bit of a hoarder of apples and oranges and whatever, just because I wasn't sure what I would need. And I mean, my backpack was full of apples, later on, but that's a very important piece of advice I think I would give to others as well. Anything else though for this group as we close up though, just if people are listening to this recording and are questioning whether or not to sign up for the Laugavegur, 2025 or 2026 trip, is there any advice, lessons, or any of your thoughts, final thoughts that you would give future travelers?
I would say you guys made it easy. You, like Cecilia, you have the double list, and the packing list, and I did not a lot of research, and that's kind of the beauty of it. You're busy with a lot of other things, and just a lot of trust from the get-go on how well organized and the pre-meetings. But and even though the weather was not maybe the best or could be, I mean, you can do it. Everyone can do it, and it's just that feeling of accomplishment. So I don't even know if there's any lessons or advice because you guys really made it easy. So
Yeah, awesome.
thank you and appreciate all the time, energy, and effort that you put in.
Elizabeth,
It
thank
shows.
you. Angel, anything else besides the right nutrition?
It was beyond what I expected. And we didn't have best weather, but I think Cecilia kind of touched on the fact that that makes it more of an adventure and something that you'll remember even more because you had to endure some of those additional hardships. I feel like I don't know. You feel like a badass. And even if you have good weather, you're gonna still feel like a badass. But it like I said, kind of just brought me back home to myself, and doing it with other women, oh, it's so empowering. It really, really is. I can't say enough about that. And our group was amazing, and existing friendships got stronger and made additional friendships. And I even see posts now on Facebook from ladies I'm friends with now about their adventures, and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, maybe it's time for another one. But it was both challenging and incredibly amazing. And yeah, like I said, the biggest takeaway for me is that the challenges just reminded me of my strength, and that packing list, you just stick to it. Stick to it.
Stick to it.
It works. It works.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracey.
Yeah.
Honestly, Tracey, your positivity and just constant smiles was, even
Yeah.
when we're just nose down while it was raining, you were just always our compass in the back, making sure we were good. So thank you. We appreciate you.
It was my pleasure. It was like, just don't miss that rock and don't trip on that rock, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Thank you. Cecilia, anything else as we wrap up here from you?
Yeah, I would just say if someone's considering this, like, just go for it. There's so easy to come up with reasons why it's not a good time, or there's other things you could be doing, or there's, I think a lot of women, especially, like, we put other people ahead of ourselves in our house a lot of the time. It's a little bit hardwired into us, and this is one of those things, the opportunity doesn't come up that often, and you really just have to jump on it, and I don't think anyone would regret it.
So it's funny that just do it. That's like the Nike saying, right? And on this last slide, right? It's still a Nike saying, it's only a crazy dream, until you do it. And you guys all did it. And this was a rainbow picture as well, too. The very last shot, the sunshine is shining on our face. And it was such an accomplishment. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to flip off recording here.